Hello, my name is Artie Prussia, and I'm a co-chair of CARDA, Creative Aging Development and Agency.
Mhm.
Our mission is to lead a radical rethink of underserved and underrepresented older creatives and communities. Our vision is a radical change in the status quo as we celebrate our aging through creativity, co-production, and collective endeavor.
Mhm.
Today, I am with Tayo Akinbode, a composer and musical director, to talk about himself, his career, and his thoughts about age and aging and creativity. Tayo, you have had an amazing career. You are very highly talented. I mean, I've worked with you throughout the years. And, just to name a few organizations you've been working with, like the Globe Theatre, the RSC, the Royal Exchange in Manchester, Bamboozle, Upswing. So it's been quite a varied kind of career over many decades, I should suggest.
Absolutely.
And I'd like you to also tell us a little bit more about yourself. So introduce yourself and actually just give us a reminder of what you're working on at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Artie. Yeah, that's me. I've been doing this for a long time. When I started off, I was a young gun back in the 80s, in the early 80s. I was this kind of young composer, MDing, uh, working with kind of radical political theatre companies largely. They're the ones who kind of got me going. Um, and yeah, so it's been a long and varied career, and I work with big companies, I work with tiny companies, and I love that there is that range. Um, yeah, absolutely love that there is that range. And so at the moment, it is that same range really. So I'm working on a couple of things. There's a writer who is a developing writer. She's not especially a young writer, but she's a developing writer. She's had one show on at the moment. It was a thing called Grandad and Nancy, and that's coming back and it's going on tour. Um, so I'm kind of working on that. I'm going to start re-rehearsing that. And she also has a play that she's developing called the Storybook. So I've written a few songs for that. So that's quite a small scale thing and a developing thing. And at the same time, I'm working with Bradford 25, which is a large scale outdoor project with aerialists, with a 200 strong community choir. Um, and I'm arranging music for the choir, and those are known songs, extant songs, songs that people will know, and I'm composing music for it as well. Um,
That's amazing. So for everyone that doesn't know, Bradford 25 is Bradford is the city of culture
it
for
is,
2025.
yeah,
How
it is.
exciting.
It is exciting. What I'm loving about the Bradford 25 thing is it's interesting that you say that for anyone who doesn't know, because it seems to me that most people don't know that Bradford is the city of culture this year. Um, and that might be a bit of an alarm bell for some. It's like, why don't we know about this? Why isn't it all out there? But because it feels to me that the main emphasis on Bradford 25 is Bradford itself, is Bradford and the people of Bradford. And so there's a lot of participatory work going on in Bradford, which is absolutely fabulous. They're getting the people of Bradford involved. So it's not about this big kind of showing the country, this is what we're doing, this is what we've got to be involved in our show. It's about Bradford. And obviously with any project as large scale as that, there are going to be mixed results. Some people are going to be loving how it's going to go, and some people are going, well, why are they just doing that? Why aren't you doing that? But the endeavour is there, and I absolutely admire the endeavour to involve the people of Bradford in this year of culture and help people of Bradford just expand their cultural activities. It's great.
Well, that's kind of where my heart lies.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of community and participatory projects throughout our
Uh-huh.
careers. So, that is really good to hear
Uh-huh.
that it's going that way. So, shall we get to some chunky questions for you?
Yeah, why not?
Thank you for that introduction. Okay, so it says here, what first motivated you to have a creative career? And has that motivation changed over time?
Okay. Well, yeah. What first motivated me was discovering music as a child, as a kid. I first discovered, now people always say, do you come from a musical background and all that? And I would say yes and no, in that my family's from Nigeria. So we listened to music all the time. There were records in the house. We always played records, people came round, listened to music, always family parties, people would dance. So music was always a part of my life, but not playing it. I only discovered playing music at secondary school. And that was just the most amazing thing, discovering that actually you can play music as well as just listen to it. It blew my mind. And I just instantly loved it. I just adored it. And someone gave me this 11-year-old lad, gave me a recorder. That's what like primary school kids do now.
Yeah.
But I was a really rough all boys school, and we were given recorders to play, and I just loved it. I just as soon as I started playing it, it was like one of those heavenly choir kind of moments. It's like this is it. I love this, and I just went from instrument to instrument to instrument, and eventually started playing in bands. So I thought I would play in bands, and I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a rock star.
You play many instruments.
I do, I do,
Go on,
yeah.
just tell us a few.
Well, I mean, it started off on recorder, and then I started to play the oboe because I wanted to learn like a more grown-up instrument. So I started on the oboe, and I had piano lessons. I gave up the oboe. I just didn't have a love for it, to be absolutely honest. But I carried on with piano. But I gave up piano lessons. But I carried on just playing. Me and my friends, we used to like go around the music block in dinner times and in breaks and just play, just jam on pianos and stuff. I played the saxophone for a couple of weeks because the school had one going and loved it, really loved the saxophone. But then someone else was in the line to learn this saxophone, so I had to give it to them back. But I'd had 2 weeks for this thing. I thought, this is great. I started playing the flute, and then I played that for a couple of years. I got nicked. I joined my first band that I ever played with was a punk band called Linda and the Genitals. Uh, but there was already someone who played keys better than me. There was a guitarist, a bass player, a drummer. So there wasn't really much left. So I became the punk recorder player in this punk band. Uh, and then eventually I thought that's it's not really getting me that far, punk recorder. So Johnny, who played guitars, had a spare guitar, so he just gave me his guitar and said, "Yeah, look, learn to play that." So I taught myself to play the guitar. I tuned it so that you could just move a chord up and down the neck like furiously, like a punk band would, and then one string at a time would tune it correctly, and eventually worked out how to play it properly. So I was a guitarist, and then the bass player of the band the band split up, and the bass player lent me his bass, and that was my second moment of playing the bass guitar and feeling this feels right, and so I became a bass player. And so even now, although I play many things, I mean, bass is the thing I feel most comfortable with. But I've just gone to other bands, and I joined a band that already had a bass player. And then, so they said, "Can you play percussion?" I said, "Well, I'll learn." They said, "Can you play trumpet?" I said, "Well, I'll learn." And I became the multi-instrumentalist in this band, playing loads of different things. So when I eventually got into theatre because someone who I was in a band with did have a music degree. I should just roll back to say that at school, I did O-level music. While I was doing O-level music, I was reading all the textbooks from A-level music because I just found it easy. I just got it recently. So I did all my O-levels. By the time I was doing A-levels, I discovered youth theatre
Mm.
and girls and partying and clubs. So I didn't really go into school much during those two A-level years. I didn't really do much work. So I came out of school with no A-levels, but a lot of amazing experiences, youth theatre and bands and things. So yeah, so I went to Manchester. I came up to Manchester. I'll give you the short version. Went up to Manchester, had a job in a theatre, and played in a band. And someone in that band had a music degree. It's a guy called Chris Monks, and he eventually started writing music. And there was a job that he couldn't do, so he said, "Tyler, look, do you fancy having a go at writing music for Manchester Youth Theatre?" So I said, well, "Yeah, okay, I'll give it a go." So I did Midsummer Night's Dream and loved it, and they paid me, which was incredible. And then someone in that show got a job with a theatre company called Moving Parts, and they wanted someone to write some music for them. So she said, "I know a guy." So I worked with Moving Parts, who are one of those radical companies from the very early 80s.
Yeah.
So went on, worked with them, and then I did a show with another company, and so on and so forth. And then suddenly I was a music composer and MD, and that took over from playing in bands.
And the
So
rest
that was
is
my
history.
initial. So that's why that's a long way of saying my initial motivation to do this was to make music. It was always just to make music, but to do it in the realm of popular music, to play in bands and stuff. So, um, although I have done that from time to time over the years, I mostly do theatre. I fell into theatre. I didn't choose it initially. It wasn't what I always wanted to do. It sort of chose me.
Well, I guess then, from knowing you then really, in a way, I would say your motivation hasn't really changed because you love music,
Yeah,
and you love making it, you love playing it, and you love working with people in order to do that. So, do
yeah.
you consider yourself old?
Um, That's a good question, and I bet everyone gives you a different answer. Yes and no is the answer to that. In all the usual stuff inside, there's so much of me that feels like that kid who first picked up a recorder and played music and was like, "Wow, this thing is amazing," or the kid who was in that punk band who felt the energy of playing music and just loved the buzz of it. So there's part of me um, is feels that. There's a part of me that is just aware of all the journey in life that I've been on. That I've done a lot of stuff in my life, Artie. You know this, so I've done a lot of stuff, and I feel that. So I feel I feel I've become an elder in that when I look around me when I'm doing shows. When I started off, I was always the youngest person in the room, and now I'm usually the oldest person in the room. Um, so I'm aware of those years. That makes me feel older. Um, old, old. I am not sure I if the word old quite fits with me, but I feel like I'm an elder for sure. Because I feel like I've done a lot, but I also feel like I feel like there's a lot to share as well. I find myself sitting here and talking, and you see the young ones around you go, "Wow, you did what? You did that," and it's in those moments that I realize, God, yeah, okay, I am so much older than these guys. I am one of the elders sitting around a campfire telling stories, I suppose.
So that's an interesting concept, isn't it? Being an elder now,
Yeah.
from where we are, because actually it's a concept also that I kind of embraced when I was in Australia well over a decade ago.
Hmm.
I'd met some First Nation people, Aboriginal,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they said to me, and because we were talking about age then, I was doing
Hmm.
research around it, and I'd asked them, what is old, when is old, and they said it's not about age,
Hmm.
it's about the experience. You become an elder
Hmm.
because it's to do with your experiences of life.
Absolutely, which I think is beautiful, and because I have these two cultures that I've grown up with, um, and obviously I spend most of my time in this kind of European, British, English, Mancunian culture where I live, surrounded by people from those cultures, but also my core, where the culture I was born into, and that was kind of written into me. it is the kind of Nigerian Yoruba culture. And I don't speak the language. I don't eat the food every day. I don't spend lots of time over there, but it is a part of me. And my parents instilled certain values in me. And one thing that is core to my being is a respect for older people, because they are the people who have lived life, and they're the people who have knowledge and wisdom. Hopefully the wisdom, but the knowledge and wisdom. So I always will always give respect to people who are older than me without even thinking about it. It's just one of those things. And I remember the first day when I was walking down the street, and a Nigerian woman came up to me and said, "Uncle, do you know where such and such is?" And I was like, "Whoa, uncle!" I'm uncle. And I did a beautiful, a wonderful production 10 years ago of Julius Caesar, more than 10 years ago, at the RSC. It was their first all black production. And and I remember, like, because I was the composer, but I was the MD, I was on the show, and there was quite an age range in the cast. And I remember some of the younger ones used to call me uncle as well. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. I will take that. Yeah, I
Well,
will.
because I think we both come from cultures where I hope that we take it as respect, as a sign of
Yeah,
respect,
absolutely,
of
absolutely.
where we are. It's not, in a way, it shouldn't be upsetting in a
No,
way. But actually,
no. I hear of stories of people who lie about their age, who say they're older than they actually are, because of that, wanting that kind of respect.
interesting. So, like, let me ask you another question, okay? So, like, this is, I don't know whether what you feel about this. I mean, if there is no answer, then that's fine. So it says, do you consciously challenge your own internalized ageism, in your creative practice?
Hmm.
And what inspires you to do that?
Hmm. Yeah, there is. It was a good question. That was one of the most interesting questions, I thought. So there's absolutely an answer to that. It's really important. It is so, so important. Because we live in this, and you and I knows, we live in this kind of tension between those two cultures, in that, coming from a culture where elders are revered, and to my mind, rightly so, absolutely rightly so, and living in a culture where elders are written off. And there's a tension between those two things, and I'm absolutely aware of the tension between those two things. Um, and so I'm there are times when I'm really conscious of my age, of the fact that I am older, that I have changed in so many ways. Things like my memory. I listened to a radio program one day, and they were talking about creativity, why younger people are more creative than older people. Uh, and they were saying, like composers, like they're always better when they're younger, uh, because as you get older, your faculties fade. You can't remember things in the same way. So as you're writing and you're forgetting things, then so your work becomes less good. And I listened to that, and I was like, damn, damn, because I forget what I did yesterday. I forget. I used to write music, and it would just be in my head. So I didn't need to write it down or anything. Now I have to write everything down or record it, but generally I scribble it down, scribble down notes just to pull it back in my head. Otherwise, I forget. I forget. But I'm super aware of that. I'm aware of that forgetting process. So it doesn't mean that I think my work is worse now or is less creative than it used to be. So, but um, but
I would
I
call it
have to
more
work harder.
refined. I would say that perhaps, we're in a position where we are able to refine it a lot more, actually.
I think so, and I think we're in a position where, I mean, there is a difference between younger and older musicians, in that, when you're young, you're constantly you're doing things, and you're discovering things, and doing things for the first time. It's like, oh, look at this thing we just discovered. When you're older, you go, yeah, but that's just what such and such did then, and oh yeah, yeah, we used to do that like ages ago and stuff. So it's about we still have that impulse to keep challenging yourself and keep finding new things, but the palette is so much richer that it's harder to find new things because when you're young, everything is new. You do something, you put those from a musical point of view, you put those four chords together. You go, look, I've just discovered, I've just written this tune and stuff. When you're older, you go, yeah, but that tune, those four chords have been used in thousands of songs for the last 70 years, kind of thing. So that challenging, so that yeah. So I'm just trying to go back to your question of yeah, do I keep challenging myself? Um, yeah, I find I have to keep challenging myself. I have this thing that goes off in my calendar, reminder that goes off in my calendar. It says abandon the usual devices. Um, and that to me, as a quote that I heard somewhere, to me, it's don't just rely on what you've always done. Just keep finding different ways of doing things. Just keep challenging yourself. And that feels quite an important thing to do as I get older too. Because I can just do what I always did because it worked and it's carried on working. But I don't want to just do what I've always done. I want to find new things.
No, wow, that's an amazing thing to do. Have a little reminder for yourself. So, what does radical creative aging mean to you?
Well, yeah, see, that's it's not a term that I would have used, but it's that I think it's that last bit that I said. It's like the radical, if radical means fundamental and that kind of stripping out that radical as opposed to just kind of like just doing it and just picking at the edges. I think it's about just going back to the core of who are you, what are you, what are you doing? As creatives, I think it is that of we just want to keep finding new things and exploring and being curious. Curiosity is a big thing. Being curious and being creative. Um, so it's that I think it's that thing of just keep striving, keep that hunger, that desire to to find new things and to find creative things. I feel like when you're young and you think, yeah, I'm gonna do the big one. I'm gonna do that great project that's gonna be great. That's gonna be amazing. Um, and I've done a lot of amazing things so already, but I still think that there are more amazing things to come.
Well, I
So
think there's a big, amazing one happening right now, isn't it? Is the Bradford 25 that you're doing?
yeah, yeah. See, there's another thing. Every time I start a new project, I still have that feeling of um, it's a slight imposter syndrome, I
Mm.
guess. Because I'm not an educated musician. I mean, I'm a highly educated musician because I learned by doing it and I've done it for so long. So I'm an incredibly educated musician. But there's still a little bit of me that is like, yeah, but I didn't go to music school and yeah, I can write out music, but I'm probably not doing it properly. And there's all these people who are doing it properly. So I have to battle that all the time. And that voice doesn't go away as you get older. It doesn't. The less of an imposter you become doesn't mean that less of an imposter you feel. So I still have all those battles to have with myself.
Wow. Well, please don't, because you're amazing. Okay, so this, if there's anything, I mean, this is my final question for you.
Yeah,
Um, if you had to write, I guess you're calling it the curiosity, rather than radical. But
yeah,
we've got, if you had to write a radical creative aging manifesto,
yeah.
what would you include in it? What would you be your call for action?
Um, it's interesting. Yeah. I would say yeah. Keep striving. Keep abandoning those usual devices. Keep searching. Keep looking for, keep asking questions, keep looking for new questions, keep trying to find new things, as opposed to just relying on what you've always done. And there was something that you said, I saw in your email that was about who's it for. And I thought it was really interesting about who's it for, because I feel this manifesto that would be written, I feel it's really important that it's for young people and old people, because it was something we started to talk about earlier, and my aging thing. I was trying to. There was something I'd forgotten that we got. I always go down a conversation and it goes off down a tangent, down this rabbit hole. But yeah, it was about challenging your own ageism, because we there is a danger that we as older artists write ourselves off as well, because we have a feeling that the industry is writing us off. That as we're getting, the industry is always looking for what is shiny and new. And so we feel that people don't want to hear what we've got to say, and don't particularly want to work with us anymore. So I think it's both of those. I think as older artists, we have to remind ourselves that we've still got a lot of good stuff in them, that our best isn't done. We've still got a lot of great creativity left in us. So keep challenging that voice of saying, "Ah, you're old, you're a bit past it, nobody wants you anymore." You still got a lot to say, and people still want to hear what you've got to say. So there's that. And there's also for young people is to also hear that these older artists, they're not old has been, they're not all boring, they've done it all, they've got nothing left, they've still got a lot left. I noticed that in sometimes on some projects, people tend to work with their peer groups, which is understandable. So people tend to work with people with the same frames of reference, um, culturally, and that means age-wise as well. So young people tend to work with young people, middle-aged people tend to work with middle-aged people. It's an understandable thing. But I think the richest rooms are where you get those kind of multiple generations. I always remember working on something with you. What was the name of the 80-year-old, 75-year-old
Dance.
dancer?
So, Love Unspoken that we were researching.
Yeah, but yeah, research. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. So it was called Love Unspoken,
It was
and
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I've
and
always
but
worked
she was
actually.
like she was 75. The dancer who we worked with, it wasn't Ninimo, was it? I can't
No,
remember.
no, no. It was Bishaka.
Bishaka, thank you.
Yes.
Bishaka, and the way she came, like, because she was a 75-year-old woman, and the way she came alive when she moved and danced in her eyes and the sparkle, it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. So I think if I may summarize, and you can correct me for
Yeah.
what you're saying with the manifesto, is that actually the best rooms you've been in is not just having a range of ages, but actually possibly a range of different cultures as well, people from
Oh,
different backgrounds, because
mhm.
that's that what makes it in a
Yeah.
way, the
Yeah.
project in a way, because it always makes us question, doesn't it?
Mm.
We have
Mhm.
to be open and alert to it. And that's how we don't get stuck in a way, because we have to be so responsive
Uh-huh.
all the time, as well as bringing our own experiences into it. But I think
Abs
that's what we need to do rather than just working with our safe peer groups, I guess, is what you're
mhm.
saying.
Yeah, absolutely. A range of ages, and the range of cultures is the most fascinating thing, and that's not always obvious as well. One of the rooms that I spent a lot of time in, again, that Julius Caesar project, I spent a lot of time in a room with the band, and the band was seven of us, seven black men, cooped up in a room together, playing music, and in between the music cues discussing, and we would sit there and we would discuss everything, like everything. We would discuss sex, politics, religion, conspiracy theories, relationships, everything. And it was the most amazing room to be in. And like, from the outside, it's like, oh, these seven black guys talking about stuff. But you had me. I was born in Great Britain, Nigerian family. You had Joseph, born in Great Britain, family from Antigua. You had Chooks, born in South Africa, then came over here. You had Chartwell, born in Zimbabwe, grew up in Zimbabwe. He was a bit older than us. You had Vieux, French speaking, born in Mali, but family from Guinea-Bissau, traveled around, younger than the rest of us. Muslim, you had etc. etc. I won't go on, but everyone was so different and had such a different frame of reference, and the discussions were just incredible. I mean, just mind-blowingly amazing.
Oh, that is the way to be, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was amazing. Thank you so much for that. Um,
Pleasure.
and is there anything else, any final words that you want to say?
There's a thing of our experience, and I know it's my experience, and we pass. And what I mean by we pass is that we pass for younger than we are. And that can't be ignored. It can't be denied, um, because if I was frail with a walking stick and all those kind of things, I don't know if I'd get as much work as I do. I mean, I get a lot of work still. It surprises me. I didn't think I would when I'm in my 60s, but I do. But it's because part of it must be because I pass for younger. And people look at me when they find out my number, they go, "No, you're kidding, really?"
But I guess we're very youthful in that
Yeah,
way in our
yeah.
outlook perhaps, and in our views that we hold, our values that we hold. We're still kind of, it feels relatively young. And
And
that
that's
maybe
that's the
maybe in our
point.
heads and our hearts, I always say I still sometimes, well, a lot of the time I still go, I'm still only in my mid 30s, and then I have to do uh it's only because my hair is graying that I kind of now, like you, when people have called you uncle, I walk down the street and I have to then go, oh, someone's just registered that I'm a lot older.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that.
No, no.
So, and that's what it is. So, so actually we're not behaving our age or whatever that is supposed to be, or however we're supposed to be behaving at this age. I don't know.
I guess that's the thing, though, isn't it?
Changing.
I think that's the thing about aging, and maybe that's the thing about the radical aging part, is that like this is what 64 looks like now. It's changed. It used to look like that wrinkled old geezer who sat in the corner with a pipe and shuffled down to the pub like every day kind of thing. But it's not like that anymore. This is what 64 is like now.
Yeah.
This is like I'm still jumping around. My back went quite recently. So that's the sort of thing that reminds me, oh my goodness, like,
Yes,
yeah,
because
my
recovery
body's
takes
preparing.
so much longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Recovery is a terrible thing. But yeah, I'm still jumping around and just like I was, yeah, in my 30s and so on. So I'm not that different from my 30s. The main differences are my memory's not as sharp as it was.
Mm.
My body's not quite as strong and nimble as it was, but I have a lot more experience and abilities than I had when I was in my 30s, and confidence as well. I was so terrified of things in my 30s. I was starting to get over that 20s thing of oh my God kind of thing. 30s is better than 20s, but then 40s is so much better than 30s I found. And then 50s was when it all started happening. That's when I started getting all these amazing big jobs in my 50s. So um, yeah, there's a lot of great things about aging.
There you go. That was such an important bit to record. Thank you so much.